Nation of Fitin10, it is day 23, and it's a special day because we are at the third mark now. We are 1/3 through the challenge. Can you believe it? We are 1/3 into the challenge. And of course, I sent your numbers out yesterday, so you should have that email. Of course, in that email, there's a link for your feedback, so send that to me, please. We are 1/3 into this challenge, which means that your next scans are coming up. So if you have not booked them, please book it, because it's going to be coming up in the near future here, right? So book your scan as soon as you can. www.calendly.com/train on me. Okay. Yesterday I talked about recovery, and I mentioned supplementation, but I didn't actually talk about those supplements. At least I don't remember talking about it. I'm pretty sure I didn't mention it. So there's a couple supplements that can make a difference, although I know it doesn't sound sexy or, maybe super exciting. But of course, your nutrition and your sleep are going to make the biggest difference in all of this. All right, I know I talked about stretching a little bit. Stretching is going to help alleviate tightness. It's not going to do anything for recovery. Blood flow will help with the recovery. In terms of supplementation, so blood flow, anything that will create blood flow to the affected muscle or muscles, sore legs and riding a bike, that will help with your recovery. But remember, we need the raw material to help with the recovery, right? But sleep and good nutrition. Now, in terms of supplementation, there's really three big ones that I notice. This is more anecdotal. Well, and this is with clients too, but I guess it's still anecdotal. Creatine monohydrate, big difference in recovery. HMB, hydroxymethylbutyrate, which is just a leucine metabolite, which probably means nothing to you, but you can just kind of think of it as just like a kind of a protein. It's a derivative of the amino acid leucine. It's one of the branched chain amino acids. An essential amino acid will really help with the recovery of the tissue as well. I'm actually getting a product called Primer. No, it's not called Primer. It's called NeuroPrime. Oh my God. I got to look it up. It's a new product, new company, new line that I'm carrying. I shall talk about more in the future. Anyways, it's a combination of creatine monohydrate and HMB. It is a phenomenal supplement. I can't wait to take it. And if you're interested, please let me know. Those two things, and of course, glutamine to a lesser degree, but I do notice a difference with recovery taking fermented glutamine. Okay, fermented. So fermented is a more bioavailable form. It will get through. Less of it will be utilized by the gut during the absorption, right? Because you're ingesting it, and of course, it's got to go through the intestinal tract. So fermented. So you get more, basically you get more active glutamine. Okay, so let's move on here, because I want to get to more of your feedback. And okay, so this person writes, all right, so basically they want to know, they would like to know the benefits of cardiovascular exercise to help motivate them. Okay, so I know what you're asking me, because you're asking me, because cardiovascular work is kind of boring, right? It's a little bit monotonous. At least I find it. I gather from what you wrote, you probably find it a little bit boring. But just a reminder, anything that will get your heart rate up into the areas or the values that I want you to get your heart rate up to, you can do that activity. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's biking or running up hills or running on the street or elliptical or stair climber or stair mill or burpees and jumps and whatever, okay? These will all be things that are totally fine, because we're just trying to get your heart rate up. But this person wanted to know about the benefits. And when you think of cardiovascular work, you probably don't think of weight training. But weight training is cardiovascular, okay? I mean, you need to get some oxygen in. You're going to notice your heart rate goes up. This is all cardiovascular. We just don't call it cardiovascular because it's not as cardiovascular as, say, sprinting or running or something like that. Jogging. but it's still cardiovascular. That is, the body requires oxygen, the heart has to speed up, we're getting movement of blood throughout the whole vessel system. Okay, so let's just speak in terms of the benefits of cardiovascular exercise, and a lot of these pertain to weight training as well. It's just, it's just really the difference between the two, if we're going to talk about resistance training versus cardiovascular work, is that the cardiovascular work is going to be less intense in terms of the strenuous, what we would typically consider cardiovascular exercise is going to be less intense on the skeletal muscular system, right? We're not demanding so much force, and it's going to be more heart rate. It's going to be a higher heart rate on average than what you're going to get out of doing resistance training. But the biggest difference is, of course, with weight training, you're building strength, you're building muscle mass, you're improving the density of a lot of the tissues on the body. Okay, a lot of the non-fat tissues. Okay, bone, muscle mass, etc. So these, a lot of these, and I'll mention, if there's any that I have not listed here that don't apply, then I'll mention it, okay? But we got lowering of blood, this is not exhaustive, by the way, I just quickly wrote this up. Lowering of blood pressure. Okay, we've got improved blood flow. So we get more connections, or we get more, connections would be the right way of thinking about this. We get more, basically, blood vessel connections throughout the body, and so we have more routes for the blood to go through, and this is really, really important, especially if you have any sort of vascular problems, because the more routes that you have, the more options that you have, the more routes you have to get blood through and around the body. Now, granted, these are going to be smaller blood vessels, so we get improved oxygen efficiency. Okay, now this is going to be more geared towards prolonged, increased heart rate. So this would be more of what we would see, but not entirely, because we do see this with weight training. This would be more conducive to, what we would typically consider cardiovascular work. So we get improved oxygen efficiency. What does that mean? It just simply means that we get better at taking in oxygen. We get better lung capacity, especially depending on the specificity of the cardiovascular work. We get better lung capacity, which means we can take in more oxygen, but we also get better transport of oxygen from the lungs to the blood, right? Because it's going into the lungs, from the lungs, it's being dispersed past the blood vessels into the bloodstream, and then the bloodstream is our dispersal system, right? It takes the blood around and takes the oxygen from the blood back into the tissues, into the cells, where the cells, require the oxygen for various things, including energy production, right? This is why when you have better transmission or transport, I should say, of oxygen from the outside into your tissues, you have more energy, you have more stamina, you have better, more specifically, you have better endurance. Okay, this also happens with weight training, by the way. We get lowering of cholesterol. I don't really know what that means. I mean, I know what that means. You get a lowering of your bad cholesterol carriers. The more research that's coming out, the more we seem to see that this doesn't actually, that cholesterol is really nothing to be concerned about, but that's a separate topic. We get better, I'm not sure what I wrote here. We get better, insulin. Wow, that does not look like the word insulin. Anyways, we get better insulin efficiency. What does this mean? It means that the body requires less insulin production from the pancreas in order to basically deliver sugar to the tissues, essentially, to the cell. This is a good thing because, at least if we're talking about type 2 diabetes, if you are type 2 diabetic or you're borderline or whatever, it's really about having that. It's it's really about the pancreas basically overworking to produce insulin to get the sugar into the cell. So we get better sugar delivery. In fact, actually, after you weight train, or actually after at cardiovascular exercise, you don't actually even need insulin to get sugar into the cell. So you've got something called what's it called? GLUT4 receptors, and that will. So just think of it as just better for your health. Okay, better for your diabetic health, or I should say blood management health. Blood sugar management health, I'm sorry. You get endorphin production. Obviously, you're going to feel good, right? Mentally, we're going to feel much better. We get a reduction in chronic diseases. This is just, we see this across all forms of exercise. Less risk of diabetes, less risk of cholesterol, stroke, heart attacks, etc. Okay? All right, I'm well over my time. I hope I did not bore you with that. Sometimes I go into too much detail, but I think the detail is kind of interesting. At least, surface detail. Have some idea what something actually means, right? Okay, day 23, message of the day. Behind every successful person, there are a lot of unsuccessful years. Behind every successful person, whatever that means, there are a lot of unsuccessful years. All right, in the case of the challenge, in the case of you managing your weight, in the case of maybe building your dream body, in the case of maybe reclaiming your health, in the case of maybe feeling better physically and mentally, I think they go hand in hand. It doesn't happen overnight. And there's many mistakes that we might make. And I'm sure a lot of you have tried different things on your own. Maybe they were successful, or maybe they weren't. But the thing is everything's a process. You're going to encounter bumps, and things take time, and you just have to accept the fact that what may seem to you as a failure, or maybe you think you've encountered a struggle, and therefore you decide that you're not cut out for this, you're not one of those people, you can't do this, your body just won't lose fat, etc., whatever it is. This is all part of the process. This is what everybody, or most people, will encounter. This goes along with anything that we're trying to achieve, especially anything of any great value. So it's a good reminder, I think, for everybody to remember that, that person that you see, or that person that you look up to, or that person that seems to have it right in terms of maybe something that you feel you don't have, they went through a lot of struggle to get where they are, okay? Positive energy, positive vibes, believe in yourself, and for the love of God, give some gratitude, and I'll talk to you all very soon. See you guys.